All right, so we're going to start our interview with China McCarney. The first kind of question we want to get into is a little background as to what introduced you to the Jaeger Sports brand, and when you did get introduced to it, were you on it right away, or did it take some time to build into, your program as a player?
Yeah, no, first of all, thanks very much for connecting. It's kind of cool. These unprecedented times we're dealing with, we're in Los Angeles and New Jersey, and so it's cool to connect with minds from all over the country. So I appreciate the opportunity to chat. And yeah, I went to my first Jaeger Sports camp clinic when I was 12 years old, which is a long time ago now, 21 years ago in 1999. And fell in love with the physical part of the program right away. I love the freedom of the throwing program. I love the way that the arm circles and the J-bands kind of prepared the arm to throw, which was nothing I had ever been exposed to. I was used to picking up a ball and throwing. That's how you warmed up. And so fell in love with that. And then as I started to get older, during the recruiting phase, when everything gets a little more chaotic, let's say, with so many different voices, where are you going to go, when are you going to sign, all this stuff, I really gravitated towards the mental training that Alan Jaeger and the Jaeger Sports program did. So I fell in love with the physical part right away and kind of evolved into the entirety of the program as I moved up through the ranks.
When did you start with Jaeger?
So I started it would have been the fall of 1999. And I was only 12, so I was just a player. And Alan Jaeger came out to the third day of that clinic and saw me throwing. And my dad, him and I had a discussion after that about we were going to stay in touch. And he's just incredible with just seeing arms and the life. I was 12, and he saw something then. And we just stayed in contact. And as I got to be 15, 16, I started doing their throwing demos when they would do camps or demonstrations. I'd be the guy out there launching and having some fun. And then probably about 18, 19 is when I started working at some capacity in the business. And so it's been a tremendous progression from, carrying the boxes of bands as a rookie that no one wants to carry and sending bands in, single envelopes taken to the post office to now being the VP and helping do deals with Dick's Sporting Goods and seeing the business evolve. It's been a really cool process for sure.
To go along with that, since you started working there, have any philosophies with the Jaeger brand changed at all, or has it basically stayed on the same course?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things I love about the program is it's pretty much stayed true and consistent with its fundamentals and foundation. I think where we're more open to have discussions, we're not going to preach anything that we're not educated on. We're not going to answer questions about stuff we don't know because we don't want to put anybody in harm's way. But we understand that there's tremendous programs out there. One of our biggest partners is Driveline Baseball. We know analytics, we know there's technology, but we stick to our 3-part process in terms of throwing progression, the 2.5 decades that Alan, I guess 3 decades now that he's been doing it, kind of seeing what works for professional college ranks. And so in terms of inside our walls, nothing's really changed in terms of what we teach, preach, and what we're experts on. But in terms of conversations and relationship, we've progressed with the game of baseball. We'll direct people to Driveline. We'll talk about spin rates and all this stuff that, is coming up. But as far as we go, we're pretty stand firm in what we've done.
So you brought up the mental aspect, which I think, especially the higher levels you go, that becomes just so much more important. But especially now as baseball, especially with facilities, gets younger and younger, it's something that if you could learn at a younger age, you'll be at an advantage at the older ages. So I want to make sure I get this right. So you have a degree in psychology with an emphasis in kinesiology, and you're also certified in sports and fitness psychology. Did I get that right?
Lots of titles there.
Yeah. So I guess with that, you guys are very into that. You've really put a lot of time into that. Was that always a passion for you, or was that something that through baseball, you got that created, where that became something that you wanted to go into?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both. My dad really wanted me to do business or communication in college, but we had some stuff at home when I was growing up that kind of affected me mentally. I had a great relationship with Alan and saw just conversations with him about psychology, and I was very drawn to that and wanted to learn about it. And so that's what kind of steered me that way. And then once I started to dive in, especially junior and senior year, once you're done with all those electives or whatever you have to take and you actually start to get to study stuff in your major, I really started to see where it could apply to baseball, or where certain thought processes were coming from for me that were just default that I had, that have been programmed in me from a young age. And so I would say I got into psychology in that more out of passion and personal need. And then it evolved as I started to move up the levels in baseball, and especially when I started to teach and coach, where I just realized that was such a important part of the game. And like you said, and this is, I'm sure all of us as coaches always have said this at one point, is like, man, I wish I knew this stuff back when I was 10 to 12 years old and started to build that foundation at a younger age.
Yeah, we've been interviewing some guys who used to play for us, who were in the minors, and to the T, every single one of them said the mental aspect. And that's something when we say, what's something you could give advice to a high school kid, every single one of them has mentioned that: ask questions, learn, get mentally strong, get prepared. So, that's great stuff. And it's great that you're making that aware at such a big platform.
Yeah. And one more point on that is, it's like when we hear the mental game or mental training, a lot of times it can be perceived as you're just going to sit and you're going to breathe and you're going to do meditation, stuff like that. But mental training can have a lot to do with your preparation and your discipline. And Jim Batcher, the co-owner of Jaeger Sports, he's about 5'0" and played 15 years professionally. And I've talked to him and I've asked him, like, how? You were an outfielder? Like, are you kidding me? Like, it's like, well, one, he doesn't have a strike zone, but number two is he was diehard in his preparation and taking care of his body. And I think that's a part of the mental game that gets lost sometimes, is everybody thinks it's like this hardcore practice and this and that, but it's like, it has a lot to do with preparation, who you are, defining your process of what puts you in the best position to succeed, prepping for the game, prepping for school, whatever it is. And so I think it embodies, just as much as the physical part of the game in the mental game.
So our facility, we're really big on long toss, obviously the bands, all that. Past couple of years, we started incorporating driveline. I just got driveline certified, so we've been really trying to upscale with all that. And was it kind of a no-brainer for you guys to get in with them, or was it more of, all right, I'm not sure if we're going to do this, and it took some more time?
Yeah, it was an interesting process. I know Kyle Boddy reached out to Alan to write the foreword for his book, the first book, I think, Hacking the Kinetic Chain, that's evolved now. But Alan was contacted, and we haven't done, like, if you look at our website, we don't really partner necessarily, just because of one of the reasons I said earlier, where we don't want to get questions or have to try to answer stuff that we're not comfortable answering for athletes. But when Alan wrote that forward and he looked at the book, and then we started to kind of research it and everything, I used weighted balls when I played in conjunction with the Jaeger Sports program. It became a no-brainer, kind of an educated no-brainer, if you will. Just looking at who they were, what they were about, and the fact that they were so detail-oriented on what they taught was crucial, at least in my eyes. Anybody that asked me about weighted balls, and like you said, the magic word is like driveline certified, or having people that are educated on what they're teaching you and what program you go through. Because with weighted balls, the smaller muscles, if you're doing it without a program that has research backing or under supervision, you can put yourself in some detrimental places. But yeah, we partner with them. We share a booth at the ABCA every year, and they've just done an incredible job on the business and marketing stuff, which is stuff I'm addicted to. I love that stuff. And just to see their growth, I think since only 2013 or something, is absolutely incredible. And yeah, we're very happy to be partnered with them, and anybody that asks us about weighted balls, driveline.com, just get over there as soon as possible.
And that's also has to be, you know, a testament to you guys that they came to you and kind of not trying to create their own band program or long toss program, that they, you know, trusted in what you guys have been doing and added that into what they were doing. So
yeah, that's kind of a blessing now for us. I think back then it was like, yeah, they're coming to us, and Alan kind of helped them with networking and different things. And now they've never said no to growth, and they've just embraced whatever comes their way, traveling to Australia and different things like that. And so their exposure in turn has helped us from a business perspective. And yeah, we're very happy that our band program and long toss program is part of their overall kind of arm care and conditioning repertoire that they have there.
All right. So you're the founder and CEO of Athletes Against Anxiety and Depression. Can you explain a little more about how you started that?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of tying it back into that previous question about psychology and why I was kind of drawn that way is I suffer from anxiety and panic attacks. I had my first panic attack in 2009, which was my junior year of college, which I don't think that's an accident. You know, that's your draft year. I had all these scouts. Everybody, like I said, when there's so many voices kind of coming at you, I wasn't equipped at that point to kind of deal with it. Had a panic attack and suffered in silence from 2009 to 2015. I didn't tell anybody because of the stigma attached to it. I was terrified of what scouts or coaches would think, or you're mentally weak, whatnot. And so in 2015, I reached kind of a breaking point where I had a panic attack. I couldn't move basically, and I was like, I got to get help. And so I reached out for help 2015, basically did therapy for a year after that. And in the winter of 2016, did a social media movement called Athletes Against Anxiety and Depression, where I shared my story. That's all I did to start. And the reaction to that from my network was all athletes and coaches and everybody I'd met through Jaeger Sports or my own career. And the amount of instant messages, nobody publicly, of course, but the amount of messages, you know, like, dude, I suffer, same thing, keep doing what you're doing, this is incredible. It was very clear to me that I had to do something bigger than just a 1 month social media thing. And so I went the 501c3 foundation route and made it official. Really the point behind the foundation for me is if I can shorten that timetable of people suffering in silence like I did, because that was the worst period ever, is when you're living on the outside completely opposite or against what you're feeling on the inside. And whether that's because of stigmas or the way you're being treated with coach expectations, parent expectations, different thing like that. I just wanted to try to create a real world voice. And that's kind of the way that movement got started. And then over the last 4 years, it's really evolved and been amazing now because you have people willing to speak up. Kevin Loves of the world, DeMar DeRozan, there's more and more athletes and high level celebrities saying they go through it too. So long-winded answer, but I got the bullet points there.
No, that one definitely hits home for me there because I suffer from the same thing actually. And my junior year of high school, same thing. It was during like the recruiting time, all that. So stressful, didn't know what it was, didn't know how to handle it, and just didn't tell anyone until actually my sophomore year of college. So
yeah,
it was, and trust me, I know holding it in is worse than actually it happening. So
yeah, absolutely.
Once I saw that and saw that you were involved with that, it was like, all right, this is. I mean, I was excited to get you on, but on top of that, now it's like, all right, good. So it's someone that I can relate to and talk about with.
Absolutely, yeah. I think sharing is kind of that first step, and that's what therapy. That's the biggest resource for the foundation that we provide is free therapy. So anybody that reaches out, if they're struggling, we have a way to get them free therapy, which is the primary reason for our fundraising, is so that we can pay the therapist and whatnot. But that step of communicating with someone and having the therapist tell me, hey, it's okay. Like, people deal with this. It's like, seriously? I'm not alone? Like, I can talk about this? It kind of changed everything and made me want to be a conduit for that and just talk with anybody, coaches. Because a lot of times it's not a blatant like act by a coach or a program to not have a culture of being able to talk about that. It's just the way that life's been. And if you don't deal with it, you just have to have a way of understanding, communicating, and letting the players know that there is help and that it's okay to talk about it. They're not going to be judged and not put on the mound because they're dealing with a little anxiety.
For sure.
Is there a website or something that you could share that if kids hear this or coaches that they could reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's the Athletes Against Anxiety and Depression Foundation. So it's just the acronym for that. So AAADF.org, and Google is our best friend. If you search something close, it'll end up getting you there. And there's not too many people named China. So if you just do China McCarney, that's one of the first things that'll come up is the AAAD website there. And yeah, if you're struggling at all, just don't hesitate to reach out. We don't share anything, obviously, of people that are reaching out, and we can get you confidential help. And there's resources on the website as well as a Tell Your Story page where you can actually submit your mental health story to create that kind of community of people that are brave and willing to share what they've gone through. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, I have one more. Kind of, you touched on it a little earlier that I think baseball, pitching, training has changed so much over the years. So before I get into my last question, was there any point where you guys felt pressure where you thought you had to change, but you stuck with what you said where you kept it kind of consistent? Or, was that something that you guys ever struggled with? Because I know in our industry and even with coaching, there's so many different, especially with social media, there's so many different people saying different things that it's kind of hard to stay with what your core values are, where everyone's looking for a new change or a new fix. So before I get into the future, in the past, kind of, was that a struggle for you guys, or was it just sticking with your core values?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And we've absolutely, because we are so kind of simple-minded in our approach, when this whole movement started, maybe 14, 15, 16, 2014, 15, 16, and there were people that were like, where is your scientific research and your studies with sensors and everything to do this? And it's like, well, we've done it for 25 years and it's kind of working. But there absolutely was pressure, and there was a long toss article done by the ASMI Institute that had some findings that you could kind of go both ways with the results, kind of like you can with everything, but they were saying that long toss may not be right, but the athletes that were used in the study were not long toss athletes before the study. And so there's definitely been times where we were like, should we go down the route of like actually getting the science behind it? But I think like anything else, experience kind of outweighs everything. And when 20 to 25 years of Alan doing it, the number of programs that are doing it D1 and feeling the results, having healthy staff the entire year, we've just kind of stuck to our guns on leaning on our experience and leaning on what's worked, just a simple 3-step program in terms of the arm care and conditioning program. And I think where Alan has evolved in his teachings and different things like that is the training kind of requirements of the modern athlete are way more than they used to be. And so navigating like the year-round throwing manual, he wrote that because of how many questions he would get on certain situations. Like, well, my 10-year-old plays 200 games a year, and when should they take a break? And it's like, well, they shouldn't play 200 games a year. But it's like, so all those different things is where he's kind of evolved and had to take that mindset of like, we need to have answers for a bunch of different questions. Like, what if I can't get outside in the winter to throw? Okay, here's an inclement weather throwing program. What's an in-season throwing protocol if you're a relief pitcher? Oh, I didn't even think about that. So I'd say where we've evolved is it's instead of just a simple one-size-fits-all throwing approach, here's long toss and go ahead, it's here's a throwing program based on your individual needs, and we're going to try to answer every question based on the needs of each individual athlete over the course of a year.
All right, and I guess to follow up on that, now for the future, is there any plans, or is it pretty much the same, or is there anything that you could elaborate on that we could educate people that might be coming out, or
a little sneak peek?
A little sneak peek.
yeah, absolutely. So This is where I get fired up. I get goosebumps, like just thinking about answering that question, because of the way the world's moving, and this kind of like exacerbated that, I guess, the quarantine, and is digital content. There's a lot of that digitally, and we don't get to travel as much anymore and have face-to-face contact doing clinics and stuff like we used to. I don't know if my body could even handle it anymore, to be honest, but we're going to try to do a lot more digital content. Alan believes strongly in free content, which has always been one of his best kind of business approaches, is he truly does it because he wants to give back and he wants people to learn and get the most out of their career. But this hat actually was a program we were working on that kind of got kiboshed for now, but it was interactive arm care, where we were going to have kind of our program and then places where you could submit either your questions or your videos of your crow hop or different things like that. And we'd be able to interact with you. But the future, I think, of Jaeger Sports is going to include a lot more digital content that we can send out. Like if an academy like yours wants to put on a Jaeger Sports clinic, instead of trying to coordinate dates and flying to New Jersey, we have a digital package you can kind of implement with your players there, because that's our passion. And we want to be able to do that as much as possible. And the digital avenue will kind of allow us to do that from a business perspective. But in terms of the content and the programs themselves, our throwing program is going to remain the same. We might do new videos with the new technology. And then we're really close to releasing a mental training program. That's all I can say at this point, but it's going to be sweet. Kind of goes like our complete competitor package that came out last year, which is our entire everything we have to offer from a throwing perspective, lower body core, stuff like that. We're kind of mimicking that product from the mental training perspective and everything that we've done in clinics and camps. And so I'm fired up about that one for sure.
Love it. That'd be great. So last one for me, more personal, but we always ask everybody the same question to end up. But, we have pitchers from 8 all the way up to Pro Bowl right now. And I think that sometimes they get sick of hearing the same voice, me and John talking to them, trying to coach them up. But if you could give just, whether it's mental, physical, whatever it is, your best advice to pitchers to kind of just stay on track and, not get flustered, not stress out about it. Obviously it's going to happen, but your best advice to kind of just stay on track, what would that be?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think like if I put myself in that mindset of let's say a 15-year-old pitcher going through high school, and I could be 25-year-old pro or an 8-year-old kind of going through it, I would say define your process. And what that means for me is figure out what works for you, both mentally and physically, right? Try out as many different things like we've touched on this conversation. Is there's no shortage of information, but at some point you can experience paralysis by analysis. Like it's a saying for a reason. There is too much information at some point. And so try out as many different things as you can, and keep I call them the ingredients. Keep the ingredients that work for you for your best recipe to put you in the best position for success. And that's both mentally and physically. Figure out what your body needs, preparation-wise, hydration-wise, everything to put you in that best position to physically perform. And then figure out, do you like long toss? What distance of long toss? Your duration of throwing. Everybody's a little different. And realize the uniqueness and the fun part of figuring that out. That's athletics to me. That's the process. That's the fun, is working with coaches like you who are invested and who care, and figuring out, Gribby just gave me the ingredient that's going to work for this part of my process. And keep that, and don't be ashamed of changing your process, because I think that cripples a lot of athletes sometimes, is the position and power above them, be it a coach, be it a parent. They take their voice as the be-all, end-all, and that they can't challenge it and everything. You don't have to challenge it in a confrontational way, but if it's not going to help you be the best version of yourself, if we're talking about sports or as a human being, it should not be included in your recipe and your process. And the better you can get at that at a young age for standing up for that for yourself, it'll change your life, and you'll be the best version of yourself for that team, for that culture, for everything. So the result is what everybody wants anyway. And I think that's the one piece of advice I wish I could go back and tell myself with my mental health battle, which it's the same thing with my athletics, is be okay with not being okay. And just, if I would have communicated with a coach instead of hiding it, what would that have changed, you know? And so my advice, define your process, figure out what works for you, and don't be ashamed for sticking to it or be afraid of a coach parent perspective, because if they love you and they want you to be the best version of yourself anyway, they're going to understand and they're going to let you stick to that.
Well, I don't know if I could ask for something better on that answer.
That was pretty good, yeah.
Thank you.
Listen,
it's easy for me because I didn't do it. I wish I would have.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I think we're all in the same boat there. So
it's easy to give the advice, yeah.
Yeah. I can't thank you enough for coming on, man. This was awesome. I mean, I can speak for John. John coached me at junior college, and I first day I walked in, it was long toss, watching the videos, all that stuff. I know when he was playing pro ball, he was long tossing and stuff. I was long tossing when I went and played at Colwell University, at P2 school in New Jersey. So we've been all about long toss when we played, and now when we coach. And, you know, we've talked about incorporating the mental game more into, because, I mean, we'll be honest, until the past couple years, it's kind of slipped. You know, it's just been physical. And the more we research, the more we, you know, just pay attention to our kids, we realize how important it is. So, you know, to get somebody on like yourself it's huge. And, you know, again, sometimes they'll listen to us, sometimes they'll kind of tune us out, but to get a new voice that'll talk to them is unbelievable. And I can't thank you enough for that.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. And give yourself some credit on the mental training side. It is very hard to sell, right? It's hard to sell. It's hard to get, especially younger kids, to buy in. And it's becoming more and more accepted. But physical practice is easy to see tangible results. So when you take ground balls, you become a better fielder. You take BP and you work on form. Mental training is a lot harder to sell to parents and the athlete that they're tangibly getting better. They have to experience it in a game or something like that. So it can be difficult. But no, I enjoyed this. This is like my passion, because I learn on stuff like this. And I love questions that you're not expecting, because you learn about yourself, right? Where like what's the one piece of advice? It's like, I don't know before I got on here, but when you think about it and you have to like verbalize it, you could just formulate it and your brain does the work for you, where it's like, well, here's what the genuine advice would be that I give. And yeah, I'd love to hop back on another one if you guys show this to your group and they have questions like, hey, follow up this, or you guys watch it and there's follow-up question where we can interact. I think that's the fun part of what we all do, is what are the questions out there, because that's really what we should be answering. So I appreciate you guys so much.